Mailbag time. Here we go. Bag alert. Major bag alert. Podcast is brought to you by our friends at sleepnumber.com/ham.
Go get yourself a bed on Haber Middlecoff. Sleepnumber.com/ham. Got deals upon deals upon deals. Get a good night's sleep. Sleepnumber.com/ham.
Nothing like that sleep IQ technology. And brought to you by our friends at upstart.com/ham.
You got some credit card debt? They're here to help you out. Upstart.com/ham. Get that credit card debt. Bye-bye.
GABI.com/ham. That's Gabby.com/ham. John stands for Get a Better Insurance with Gabby.
Gabby.com/ham. Let's get it on.
All right, John. Don't forget, everybody, before we get to the mailbag, 3 o'clock Sunday, big announcement for the podcast. Middlecoff and I'll speak for him, we couldn't be more fired up. You said it the other day on the podcast, and I think you were right, of all the things that we've accomplished in our media careers. This is up there. This is somebody is jumping on board with the pod, a company that we really believe in, that we think you guys are we know you guys love because they're number one in what they do already. So everyone loves them.
If fired up was a literal statement, we would be on fire.
All right. Here's how you do a mailbag. You go to iTunes, you leave us a review. In that review, you do 2 things. You leave us a question and you tell us your favorite bar to hang out at, wherever it is in the world. We also have a couple questions that we take from Facebook. iTunes gets the priority, but go to the Haber Middlecoff Facebook page. We also take questions from Facebook for the mailbag. So here we go. You ready to roll?
Let's do it.
We have not read these ahead of time. I just screenshotted them, but I try not to look at them so we can all be surprised together. This is from Niner Dan. He says, love the content. Can't wait for you guys to dive into camp storylines. Bar recommendation from the South Bay. Caesar's Cantina. Huge beer selection and great barbecue.
Ooh.
You speak in our tone. Olympic-themed question for you. Would you rather be a champion in one of the major sports, but as one of the last guys on the roster, or win gold in an Olympic sport? What Olympic sport would you choose? It's a very good question. So last guy on the roster, but you win an NBA or an NFL or a Major League Baseball, you win a championship, or individual gold medalist in. We would say here you're not choosing basketball, I guess, to win your gold medal. Is that?
Yeah, obviously, because then you'd be a pretty star player, because you'd probably choose that because then you're also really rich, right?
Yeah.
I mean, to me, you'd have to really get into the context of, am I like Matt Slater on the Patriots, and people in the town are going to know me
I don't
forever?
think so. One of the last guys on the roster. I guess football's hard because even the last guy has a role, but I don't think he's thinking Matt Slater.
I would choose Super Bowl, probably over Olympic gold. Now, would I be the 14th guy in an NBA champion? Because you're right. If you're on a football team, you're going to play some special teams. Like, you're going to get on the field. Even, I guess, an offensive line. If you're like the backup guard, you might just play on like kickoff, or actually field goal. So you don't really get to play that much. Baseball, if you're on the 25, you're going to play in the World Series, right?
Yeah, I mean, you could be, I would imagine for this guy, you're like, the last bullpen guy who comes in when it's 7-0.
Okay. But even then, there's usually a blowout in like a 6-game series. They throw you in for a couple innings.
Yeah.
You get to pitch in the World Series. I would choose championship.
Having just watched Caleb Dressel win gold last night, I don't know if you saw any. Did you watch any of the swimming? I missed it completely. No. I don't know when anything's on, but I heard about it, so I watched the highlights of of Katie Ledecky, the 4x200, whatever that is. She came storming back from she was the last leg of the U.S. race, and they won silver. But this guy, Caleb Dressel, came out looking, first of all, he looks 6'6". He looks 6'6", 240. Turns out he's 6'3", 195.
Is he tatted?
He's got some tats, yeah.
Yeah, I like that guy. Looks sweet.
He came out, won gold, and they showed his family, watching from Florida. His mom could not look. You would have thought she was watching a car crash. She kept tucking her head away. It was so nerve-wracking for her. His wife is going bananas. The whole place is going. The man won a gold medal. The beauty of swimming or track and field, you'd get fastest man alive. That's what they would call you, if you won a gold. So I think I'd go with. Plus, you can come back and win multiples, right? If you're the last guy on the team, you might only have a short career.
Well, if you're giving me multiple golds. Right, and I could.
You're going to come back probably in 4 more years, right?
Yeah, but if I'm a gold medal, that means I'm going to be in the mix. I might. If I have to parlay it into money. Otherwise, just one gold. I think
You would
I
have to-
lean championship.
Individual gold, and the beauty is like your team. There is still like a team around you that celebrates with you. That's kind of cool. So I'd lean Olympic gold on this.
I think it feels pretty heat of the moment because the Olympics, again,
For
you
sure,
watch
it
these
definitely
events,
is.
it's
Yeah,
awesome.
Totally.
But it's pretty fucking badass celebrating with your boys and winning an NBA Finals or Super Bowl, right?
No doubt. All right, next up, John. This is from Rippin' Jaw. Golf pro loves ham. I'm a golf pro from Maryland. Love the golf talk. The Mount Rushmore argument is as old as time, but thinking about the biggest American athletes to go global, I think there are an obvious three: Tiger, Jordan, and Muhammad Ali. Who's the fourth? Disappointed no Titleist guys on hand, but no one's perfect. Enjoy the content. Maybe we'll get some Titleist one day. So who's the Mount Rushmore of American athletes to go global? That's tough. Tiger, Jordan, Ali. I mean, OJ?
Yeah, I
Simpson?
mean, honestly, could it be an Olympic athlete? Could it be like a Michael Phelps?
Phelps. Magic. I mean, could it be, to me, basketball player more so than a
Yeah, I mean, it
baseball
feels like
player?
LeBron with the internet's probably bigger than Magic ever was.
LeBron might actually be fourth here.
Yeah, probably is. Sad, but it's true.
In my head, I thought Steph maybe.
Feels like LeBron's infinitely bigger than Steph worldwide. He's just been doing it longer, just more famous.
Yeah. I pulled up
Again, that
Jesse
pains me to
Owens.
say that.
Jackie Robinson. Yeah, I think I'd go.
I think the problem is he's right. The three are just they feel like they're on a different level, right?
Yeah. They are the big three.
They all kind of came like Ali, right? 60s, 70s. I mean, he was so big in the 70s, but his work was in the 60s. Michael became a big deal early 80s, hits the shot, and then all through the 80s, and then he becomes a dominant player in the 90s. As Tigers, we're learning about Tiger in the 90s, and then he takes it into worldwide fame in the 2000s. You'd probably have to give 10 to LeBron. I mean, it'd probably be LeBron.
Yeah, it is
Again,
LeBron.
pains me to say, but it's probably true.
All right, next up.
And I would say this, like if you're ranking him, I'd have LeBron as a clear fourth in the impact worldwide he's had. And in fairness to him, like
Kobe?
he's the second basketball player there. I'd say LeBron's bigger than Kobe.
Next up from Nick Sarna. Full name on the internet. Look at this guy. Oregon alum. As an Oregon alum, the greatest watering hole on the West Coast would have to be Taylor's. No more detail. With name, image, and likeness now in effect, does Oregon become a powerhouse in recruiting because of the seemingly unlimited money Nike has to give player deals? Yeah, it's tough. I think there's some rules about like what exactly Nike can do versus what, just any random person can do. But did you see what Ed Orgeron said at a Rotary Club meeting on Wednesday? Y'all can start paying our players, so go ahead. Y'all want to start paying our players? It's allowed now. Oh shit.
Was that what you told me about Thibodeau on or off the record when you talked to him?
Ooh, I don't remember which thing you're talking about.
About the dude calling him?
That was on the record. Yeah, on the record.
Tell that story.
So Kayvon Thibodeau, star, Oregon, interviewed him at Pac-12 Media Day. Met him the other day, Tuesday, and he
Could you give us a little scout rundown, like size, length?
I mean,
arms?
just exactly what it's supposed to look like.
Honestly, like 6'5", long arms.
Yeah, just so proportional. I think when you see the elite athlete, I don't know if you, but like you said this about Buckner the other day. He's massive, but he's proportional, right? It fits together in a way that you think is going to be super athletic. He had like 3 rings on, 2 Rose Bowl 2 Pac-12 title rings and a Rose Bowl ring. And he had like the glasses that are frameless on the top and bottom, but like a gold arm on the side and over the nose piece. Was very thoughtful. I was really impressed with him. Did a lot of like saying stuff that was clearly just repeating his head coach, so coachable in that way. But yes, dude, 6'5" and just exactly what it's supposed to look like. Yeah, like serious, gave great answers, but was also serious about what he was here to do. So,
and he's on the short. He was like a Myles Garrett, Bosa level recruit, right? I mean, he was a can't miss. Everyone.
I think McShay had him as the number 1 pick in his last mock draft for next year.
Texas kid, is that where he's from, or LA?
No, he's from LA.
Yeah, he's from LA. That's what I thought.
So he's got an NFT. Tinker Hatfield, the guy that designed all the Michael Jordan shoes, made him an NFT that it made him like 90. I think he can sell them. I think he said they're going to print one. Because I'm like, well, how much are they going for? He's like, they're like $85 right now. It's tied to Ethereum. He knew the whole thing. But he said the way it came about was he's in the locker room. He gets a phone call. It's his area code. He knows it's a Portland number. He doesn't know the number. Normally I don't answer, but this time I answered. And the guy says, "Hi, this is Philip Knight." And the guy just talks for like 5 minutes. And he's like, the whole time the guy's talking, I'm like, Philip Knight? Who is Philip Knight? And then finally it hit me. And he said, "Wait, is this Uncle Phil?" And the guy's like, "Yeah, Phil Knight. This is Phil Knight." And Phil Knight called him directly. So the question of, is there some direct tie with Nike? Yes, Phil Knight made the direct. There's no like, oh, the secretary sent somebody over. I'm the blah, blah, blah. Phil Knight calls. Phil Knight. So
that's badass.
So yeah, Nike, Oregon's got a sweet advantage. Did you want to say anything else on that?
No, I don't. Now, granted, I guess last year was a weird year, so it was hard to watch the Pac-12 just because their games were all over the map. And his freshman year is a big.
They didn't start him right away as a freshman. It was kind of a big deal.
Yeah, that's why it wasn't like he was playing every snap. I would say he definitely has the biggest NFL eyeballs on this kid out west, right?
Yeah, him and
he's
Slovis
viewed as like
probably
a non-quarterback, number 1 overall player.
He's
right?
viewed as McShay had him number 1 in his mock, I think.
Yeah, if one of these quarterbacks don't take it by the reins. Well, have you seen the kid at UNC, Howell?
Yeah,
he's short.
Yeah, I know.
Slovis is that last physical quality. Like,
Rattler.
there is not like, but even Rattler, he's smaller. I don't think there is like
Desmond
Trevor
Ritter.
Lawrence.
The guy at Cincinnati, maybe. Next up, John from Semja, 89. Great pod as always. I was rewatching Moneyball, and the scene where they're cutting Giambi, Damon, and Isringhausen banner always had me wondering what the general feel in Oakland is about Oakland sports. They're cutting down the banner. Also, I heard a contrarian opinion that Billy Beane is not as responsible for the A's success as we're led to believe. Can you comment on that as well? Is it more de Podesta than we think? Oh, historically, David Forrest is the guy. I remember I saw David Forrest at a Cal baseball game a month ago with their scouting director, I think. So those guys are. I mean, Billy's very much involved, but yeah, I mean, David Forrest.
I think his question's more based on like the Moneyball era. Does he get too much credit for that?
Oh,
Yeah,
it's interesting. I don't know. I mean,
I think Billy's pretty fucking good at his job, don't you?
You hire the guy. Even if the guy helped, like this is part of the point. It's like you hire smart people. People were not hiring just guys with no baseball experience to come help them run departments.
But do you get credit? Like, I say this all the time about NFL GMs. Like, he's a good drafter. Well, is he good at free agency? Does he hire a good coach? Like, it's more than just you get credit for when you say, Farhan's the smartest guy I've ever interviewed, and then I hired him. And no one would have hired Farhan. Like, you get credit. Farhan would be the first to tell you, like, without Billy Beane, I don't exist.
Yeah.
Like, do you not get credit for that?
No.
I mean,
the vision of hiring somebody and giving them a responsibility on a level that other people may not have given them.
I also think Billy, and this is where I think he probably influenced those guys a lot, because I remember when I got hired to work with you and we were around that A's team like 2 iterations ago, and they were always kind of like this. Underrated, like Daryl Morey is not good at this. Doesn't care about chemistry at all. Never did. I think Billy doesn't get credit enough for like having just kind of guys. Like they do the numbers guys, but like if you just walk in their locker room right now, a team that's probably going to make the playoffs, like it's just dudes. And it's not like just this guy over there. I think Moneyball kind of made it feel like that at times. And just I think the way people talk about analytics, I think Billy's really, really good at like the shit Pat Riley cares about, right? Like the guy.
Right.
How often do they have like slappy weirdos? Now, obviously they get really good players, but like they feel like they get guys that other teams value as people.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. No, you're right.
I never thought Billy gets enough credit for that. I honestly, my take is, I think even the hype he's gotten, I think he's probably factoring in what he deals with the franchise. Because his original question, Oakland Sports, that franchise is kind of a joke. They don't spend any money. In fairness, like they don't have much fan support, even though the fans are loud. Like the numbers aren't there. What he's done is probably one of the most incredible things in the history of sports, keeping that thing just rolling. I mean, they have no business to be that good.
Yeah. Now, I also think you could some people reverse it and go, well, you don't give the fans a lot of a reason. You turn the roster over. You don't upgrade the stadium, right? It's a two-way street. But everything you said on Billy, I agree with. I was laughing because they traded, a guy that's been one of their big prospects over the years, but is now 24. And he's got like a 6 CRA in AAA, Jesus Luzardo. They traded him for Starling Marte, who's like a stud, but is a rental. And I saw some A's people, fans and others, were like, "This is no, not Luzardo." And I was texting our buddy John Dickinson yesterday. I was kind of cracking up because I'm like, "Wait a second." So everyone's mad that they prioritize the prospects over the star players. Then they trade a prospect who's not performing for a star player, and everyone's mad that the guy's gone. Like, you can't have it both ways. They're going for it. So
yeah.
Next up, Vincent. This was on Facebook. Who is the sleeper rookie set to dominate? Well, good question. Hunter Bishop is back from. He texted me. He's back healthy, John, from his shoulder. He's in high A. He's ready to roll Thursday. Hopefully, he's getting some ABs as we speak, taking some BP. So,
is he a rookie?
No, you're not a rookie till you're in the bigs. I think this is a football question.
Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna say the same name over. I think Najee Harris and the Steelers are just a fit. Kind of like CeeDee Lamb last year with the Cowboys. You're like, damn, this works. I think Najee Harris and the Steelers is just, especially because they have, like, the only way for them to keep Ben at his age functioning is they have to run the football. And remember last year, Connor would get hurt. They just didn't have running backs. I just think Najee is, he's just a stud, man. I just think he's an elite player. They haven't had an elite running back. Like, people forget, like, Le'Veon had elite seasons, but he was not a first-round pick. He wasn't viewed as, like, elite traits. Like, I think Najee, if you just ask GMs who, not ranking position values, like, who's one of the better players in the draft, I think a lot of people would have said Najee was, like, a top 10 talent in the draft. He just played a position that you just don't draft that high.
Yeah. That's a good one. I don't want to go obvious. My first instinct was Kyle Pitts. Just Ryan, Arthur Smith. Elite prospect, but he's the 4th overall pick. I don't know if that's too.
I think they're going to suck.
I do too, but that doesn't mean he's not going to put up numbers. I think he's going to put up numbers. That's what they do. They go 5.
I could just see it being really, even their offense. Like, I don't know.
I'm skeptical on Arthur Smith and Matt Ryan. We're reaching the end here, but
he's had mobile quarterbacks with his offense. This guy can't move.
That's a fact, right? Jack. Just get this guy the ball, man. Tutu Atwell. That's the guy, actually. Tutu.
I can't wait to watch
Big Tutu fans on this show. Let's see. Let me make sure I lost my spot. Next up, CC Cortez. Now that the Cleveland Indians have changed their name to the Guardians, not so fast. Did you see the roller derby team is suing or something like that? There's a Guardians roller derby team in Cleveland that, like, owns the website. And apparently no one knew they existed. But anyway, back to the question. What could that mean for other teams across sports with names representing certain groups of people? Washington changing theirs. What about, like, the Kansas City Chiefs or maybe the Atlanta Braves? This could also translate to the collegiate level as well, e.g. the Seminoles. I think the thing that accelerated it for Washington football team and for the Indians was the logo, more so than even the name. That, like, the logo felt like it was cartoonish. Like, the Indians thing was like, this is a cartoon. I think why they avoid a lot of this conversation is because their logo is a arrowhead. The Braves eliminated a lot of their stuff. I think they're just the A and the what's it called now, right? I don't think they use, like, a Native American head logo in any way anymore.
Like they did in the 90s or whatever.
Yeah, did they get rid of the chop?
I don't know.
The Chiefs I thought they did. No, Chiefs didn't. The Seminoles, I think it's harder in college than it is in the pros, although it's happened. Stanford used to be the Indians once upon a time.
But isn't Seminoles a tribe that was in Florida?
Yeah, this is what I'm saying is I think a lot of times it tends to be more if your logo is like a caricature than it is the name itself. Like the name Chiefs, right? It's I think the Chiefs.
I'll be completely. I'm not that educated on this topic in the sense of I refuse to, like, get that caught. It didn't whatever. I felt like the big knock on the Indians and the Redskins were, like, for the people that wanted to change, were like, it's racist, right?
Well,
where the Seminole, like, that's just a name of a tribe. The chief is like, there's a chief in a tribe, like, that's just like is being called the chief. I think they always had a problem with the chop, right, with the Braves.
Yeah.
But, like, the Braves is not a racist term. But who knows? The way society works.
Yeah, the one I always understood, the easiest one to get was Redskins. Like, okay, I could see. I wasn't around when, like, people used that. When we had, like, Native American. Like, you grew up at a certain age. Like, it was Native Americans. Like, that was right. So, but I could see that one. I'm like, all right, I could see if the color of your skin is part of the name. That's probably iffy. But again, I think back to my point on the Chiefs. Like I think the Indians one. You're right. That is closer to Redskins than it is Chief in terms of a name. But I always remember the logo itself was always like a sticking. Not always, but recently like a sticking point too.
Yeah.
So
I would on this stuff. I would never say never.
Yeah.
You know, the way society works and the pressures and.
Next up, No Bad Days 24, 24, 24, 24. Peter is the name of this one. Any insight on what on-base percentage of what the quote-unquote on-base percentage in football is? Yes, John, I know analytics have been in football forever, but my question is, do you have any certain stats that are undervalued league-wide that good teams value? I feel like we could talk about analytics for play calling or for the scouting combine, but there has to be something that good teams use to find value in players. If you don't know, any guess as to what the equivalent of on-base percentage would be in football? Thank you. You guys are the best. Much respect. Great people that are very relatable, John and Guy. Just a couple of blue-collar dudes. Promo code HAM. Appreciate that. No Bad Days.
That's a pretty good question.
Because even on-base percentage isn't on-base percentage anymore, right? It's not undervalued.
Generic. Yeah, I mean, maybe something like arm length, something like, maybe like a target to catch percentage, maybe something like, if you said yards per carry, that's what on per base percentage, this stuff like that went out the window 20 years ago. So yeah, I'm sure there are things with individual teams, but they constantly progress, right? Because in sports, one probably more than any other industry, it's just also insulated. There are only so many teams you can go to, and the more one team has success, those guys just expand. And it's just impossible. Like, how many true secrets are there in sports anymore? Right? Like the secret sauce Billy Bean's been using with the A's is now all over baseball, right? Like, all the rich teams have the secret sauce. But you're always trying to adapt. Or Daryl Morey. Like, how many Daryl Morey guys now run teams? Right? Guy runs the Timberwolves. Guy runs the Kings. Daryl now runs the Sixers. So his old guy runs the Rockets. It just naturally expands. My push on this, and this is just because I don't have a specific answer, I think the goalpost is always moving. Like, I think there may be a trend for a couple years, and then the moment that trend works, the nature of the business, because it's also like you start talking to your coaches about it. Hey, to our offensive coordinator, I think this is why it's working. Well, that guy gets a job. It just expands when things work. I think it's impossible to keep an insulated secret on something like on-base percentage is no longer niche, but just the niche-y new thing.
Even it feels like the GPS data has become a pretty, I wouldn't say it's a mainstream discussion, but everyone has that stuff.
Yeah.
Not just on their own players, right, but on players
I do think that has become, a thing to the way these coaches push guys and feel, I don't know if this works or not because it feels like there's more injuries now than ever, but feel good about, like, taking a guy off practice. It's not like a guessing game. It's like, we give him Wednesdays off. Why? Because he's old, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's just, you just kind of gut feel. I think there's less gut feel now based on quote-unquote data.
Yeah, and there's more injuries.
Way more injuries.
Practices are easier, and there's less of them, and there's more guys getting hurt.
It's crazy.
Okay, this is from Cork, longtime listener, first-time reviewer, Hammer Time. Even as an A's Raiders fan, these city boys run a high-level operation. Oh, we're the city boys. Great coverage, incredible hair, better takes, buyer beware on Milkoff's golf bets. Those are hard to hit, John. Bag time. As an East Bay native, prior to the Raider and a prior Raider and A's season ticket holder, when the A's leave Oakland to complete the professional sports exodus trifecta in under a decade, will it be the biggest embarrassment tragedy for any city in the history of sports? P.S. McNally's Irish Pub in Oakland is always the bar. P.P.S. Ride high Mustangs. Which schools? Do you know the Mustangs?
Oh, Cal Poly.
Oh, Cal Poly Mustangs. Okay, I thought it was.
But
Oakland
I
High
don't
School.
know if that's what he means.
Yeah, you're right. I bet
Mustangs.
it is. I bet it is. The
I do take
sports
a little
exodus trifecta.
I take a little offense to City Boy, personally. I mean, you've lived there for a while, but you're not a natural grow-up.
I'm not a city guy. I just live here.
You've lived there for a decade. But I do
8
think
years.
I do think that it's,
And I like it.
It's based on how you grow up, not like where you end up moving
Absolutely.
for jobs and stuff. So it's like I grew up in a small town. Now I've lived in the city. I've lived in multiple cities, but city boy, like I never felt comfortable because I like my grass. I like my space. I do my work in suburbs.
I identify as an Air Force kid. That's when people ask me where you're from. I'm always like, well, what I think defined me and my upbringing was the fact that we were in the Air Force, and that gave me great experiences to be exposed to different people and places. Now, we moved to Davis, and that's home, and that's where my parents are now. And that's where we met, and that's where I went to high school. So that's, the short answer. But anyway.
I moved around these streets, dog. Yeah, I mean, is it an embarrassment? I mean, I would say not necessarily.
It's not a point of pride.
I'd say if you looked at it like this, if you were starting from scratch and placing teams around the country, Oakland would never get a team. Now, the way teams originally started weren't based on where media markets were going to be post-internet age. So it's stupid to play that game. But if you do take a step back, you go, we had an incredible run, incredible teams. We had historic moments. The Warriors, technically, they just moved down. They just upgraded a home, right?
They were in San Francisco originally.
And they're not. I mean, Oakland loves to claim them, but they weren't. They were the Bay Area's team, right? I mean, they were the one team where the baseball and football team split fans. They had the whole group.
I also think it's really hard because I understand why the A's came there, or why the Raiders. When you look at the market size, it is bigger than just San Francisco. But I also think it's very difficult to support multiple teams in the same sport in one market. I mean, it's hard.
One thing I do wonder, though, Guy, is, and again, it's easy to say this now, that when they built that area, it was probably made a lot of sense to put the arena out there. If you had told me the baseball/football arena had been downtown Oakland, where clearly a lot of commerce has added over the last decades, that area sucks where it's at right now. It just sucks. It's a dump. So I understand why all those teams are like, we don't want to stay in this area, right? If that area had been a potential, once upon a time when the Giants moved their stadium, there was potential there. I just think and you can always say you never know, and maybe in 50 years that area is booming. That's just the way California's historically always operated. It feels like, I don't know, less likely. I don't know. I just wonder if that stadium was just different place, even if it was old, would it be viewed a little different?
Yeah, I think so, because I think most stadiums that are in that type of place that you're describing are viewed differently. Cleveland. Okay, most people don't talk about Cleveland like a tourist destination, but a lot of things happen in Cleveland. They've got the big golf event every year. They've got a lot of stuff. I went to whatever they call Progressive Field, maybe it was 2019. It was awesome because there were restaurants all around the ballpark, and we walked right out of the ballpark, and it was pick the street you want to walk down. It looked to me like pictures I've seen in New Orleans. It was just whatever side street you pick, you're going to find a steakhouse, you're going to find 7 bars, you're going to find, the little lights going over the street, the whole thing. It was awesome. I thought it was one of the best areas around a ballpark I'd ever experienced.
I'll give you an example of an area that I've driven by a couple times just when I lived in Philly, and I never went to a game there. I think you probably have, a baseball game for sure. And I wonder if the demos and the city size, maybe I'm off, is Baltimore has some parallels to Oakland.
Baltimore's I've been to several games there.
Their park and the
awesome.
Football stadium and the baseball stadium are fucking downtown. So you'd say, is Baltimore an ideal big market? I don't know. Honestly, it just kind of feels a little Oakland-y to me, just thinking about it. But it's downtown, you're just kind of there.
Remember,
things are just expand.
All this whole style of ballpark that Petco is now, that Safeco is now, that Oracle
built
Park
around
is now.
the high rises.
Yeah, but no, the old style brick and let's make it look kind of old school. I think HOK. I don't think that's the name of the designer architect anymore, but that was the designer. Camden Yards was the first like that, and then they built several in the same vein. That were Camden Yards was a tourist,
a specific wall kind of out of nowhere.
Yeah,
that's kind of cool.
Yeah, exactly. Some weird stuff, a lot of brick, and just make it. Camden Yards was a real tourist destination. I want to go see Camden Yards. It's an awesome place. And that's, the argument for, no, we're going to put this thing on the water. We're going to make it look cool. There is something to be said for that. But you're not giving them a chance where they are right now. I totally get why the A's are we are not building here. It doesn't, no. All right, next up, John. Cam Akers, round 1. Huge fan of the pod. Assuming the reports are true. So this is from 8 days ago. So the reports are true. Texas and Oklahoma are leaving the Big 12 for the SEC. What are your thoughts on how realignment shakes out for the rest of the Big 12 teams? Does the Pac-12 or ACC come in for Baylor, TCU, or Tech, establishing a foothold in the state of Texas? Who gets left at the altar? Does KU hoops outweigh their football program, decrepit football program? A lot to unpack here, but seems like a fun topic for the mailbag. Well, as we learned, the AAC comes calling.
It went from like sources, Oklahoma, Texas are sniffing around to the SEC to like 2 days later. They're in the SEC and more than likely to start in 2022, and the Big 12 is suing ESPN for colluding. That shit fucking happened. Within
ESPN has responded and said, these accusations are ridiculous. We consider the matter closed.
I'm sorry, guy. If I had to take an educated guess, if me and you ran ESPN, I find it hard to believe that when we were attracting the SEC, these conversations didn't somewhat come up. Not saying that they pushed Texas, Oklahoma, but maybe put together some binders and some numbers, what it would look like.
Well, if you were the SEC, you would want ESPN to know that you were getting Texas, Oklahoma. And there's absolutely
no one knew.
There is no way they didn't know, John.
Yeah, they knew. And you know what? It's worth getting sued over because you just do it.
Well, are you really going to get sued? We'll see. There has to be a Big 12 left to sue them.
That's true. I think it's going to be sweet. Do you know that the average Oklahoma and Texas game draws like 5 to 7 million people on ESPN? So if you're ESPN, you're going to the SEC, wouldn't you want to bring two of the bigger properties you've worked with for like decades?
Well, yeah. I mean, it's Texas, the number one athletics department in the country, and they don't even win.
And clearly Oklahoma's been a cash cow for TV partners.
You know what's funny? I was talking to a TV guy the other day who told me, he's like, what's funny is when Oklahoma's not great, it's not the greatest environment. Like, it's good.
I push back, guy. They've been good for our entire life.
Yeah, well, they're great. But what I said to him is like, yeah, there's like a Texas. That's it. When Clemson's not great, whatever. Clemson's great. They're a powerhouse. There's the AC. Oh, like, here's one, Kansas. You know, Kansas makes more money than most schools. Kansas makes a ton of money, and they're bad at football.
You know, their basketball arena seats like 25,000 people.
Right? They make so much. Kansas is one of the more higher revenue athletics departments in the country. Like,
why is that? Is it basketball?
Yeah, and I think they're top 25. I got to go back and look, but they are a high revenue institution. So
you're saying people are going to want them?
Yeah, I don't think Kansas have a problem. Plus, they're academically, I think, solid.
Why wouldn't the Pac-12 try to have them in another program?
Yeah, Kansas would probably be on the list.
Kansas, Iowa State, Pac-14. Let's roll.
If you're Iowa State, where would you try to go if you're Iowa State? I'd try to go to the Big Ten.
Yeah, Big Ten. Yeah, but wouldn't the Big Ten try to get Kansas?
Yeah, I mean, get them both
for basketball.
Next up. This is from Michael on Facebook. Guys, love watching your podcast on YouTube. In fact, my wife, who isn't a sports talk listener, also loves watching. You guys are funny as shit. I love your stories. My question is, who's the best case scenario comp for Trey Lance? And the worst case scenario? I'm thinking best case Deshaun Watson, worst case Sam Darnold.
Speaking about shit, did you see Gardner Minshew's comment?
That he's not competing for second place, basically, for backup? Is that what it was?
Yeah, that he's so constipated because he ain't thinking about doing anything that involves a number two. He's like, I haven't taken a shit all summer because I ain't doing number twos.
What a line. That's a good line.
A good line, yeah. What was the question?
The best and worst case comps for Trey Lance. Best case Deshaun, worst case Darnold.
He's just bigger, stronger arm than Deshaun. You know, he's a different type player. Same with Sam Darnold. He's got a much better arm than those guys. I think he's more Josh Allen-y. Like, I think that's kind of going to be his thing. And I'd say worst case is just like the Kaiser wasn't immobile, but just like those big arm guys that just suck.
Yeah, the worst case, you can't say worst case and then name a guy that's a starter, right?
Yeah, he's just worst case, he sucks.
Because there has been every level of talent player in every sport that has not just like knocked around and not lived up to expectations, but failed. And nobody, to say that you ever know that somebody is totally fail-proof is just so.
What do you think, Josh Allen vibes? I think that's kind of his.
That was, yeah, I like that. But same deal. Like, gonna take a jump from an Josh took a huge accuracy jump. I think. Have you noticed one thing that's bubbling out there?
People like worst case, like Nick Foles. You're like, okay, we can win a little.
Win a championship.
Yeah,
you're right. Have you noticed there's some Josh Allen is Josh Allen going to regress this year? Stuff bubbling out there based on how much his completion percentage jumped and all that? It's going to be an interesting.
I saw on Twitter today, Emmanuel Sanders said he's been in the league a decade. He threw 2 passes a day at practice he's never seen before his entire career.
Somebody then listed all the quarterbacks he's played with. It's not exactly the John Elways of the world.
You're right, Jimmy's. You're right. He played with some bad guys.
Played with Breeze.
Alex.
Breeze, right?
Oh, I guess he never made it to the Chiefs. He missed Peyton Manning?
In Denver? I thought they played...
He might have got the one bad Peyton Manning year. Maybe came at the end.
Somebody listed. I got to go back and look at this tweet real quick.
He definitely got a year of Peyton Manning because remember the Chiefs tried to sign him and then he went to the Broncos. But, I mean, Peyton Manning is not like Josh Allen. So I could see, like, Peyton Manning in practice, besides screaming at people, is not making throws that blow your mind. Jimmy.
He called it
Breeze.
mouth dropping. I can't find that.
Well, Emmanuel Sanders started. He played with Roethlisberger.
Oh, yeah, Big Ben. That's true. Peyton, Jimmy G. Emmanuel Sanders has been a lot of winning. Been around a lot of winning.
I mean, guy, you're acting like this person's poo-pooing. That's a pretty good list of guys.
No, that person was not poo-poo. This person was giving him credit.
How many Hall of Famers are on that list? 3?
Well, I mean, Jimmy's career's not done.
Oh, this guy was saying like that's pretty high praise.
Yeah, I just saw a list and I saw Jimmy G on it, and I'm like, well, from an arm strength standpoint, I'm not saying he's played with scrubs.
Yeah, now the arm strength standpoint of that list is not great, right? Ben's high, but the rest of them are like Manning ain't rolling out to his right, throwing 50 yards.
Emmanuel Sanders' opinion matters on this topic. I'm not saying it doesn't. It does. Yeah. I'm a pro Emmanuel Sanders.
You were trying to dump on Jimmy.
All right, John. Good mailbag, everybody. 3:00 Sunday. See you on the tube. Big podcast coming out.
Adios. Can't wait. Let's do it.